The chamber of the Galactic Council was built to intimidate. 17 tiers of curved obsidian seats rose toward a vaulted ceiling that shimmered with the projected light of 1,000 star systems. Representatives from 42 species filled those seats, chitinous bodies, crystalline forms, beings of gas contained in walking shells, all watching the single human who stood at the center podium, alone beneath the great light. Ambassador Ethan Cross did not look intimidated. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his dark suit unremarkable among the spectacle of alien regalia, his face carrying that particular stillness that humans wore when they had already made a decision and were simply waiting for the world to catch up. High Counselor Kale Veyron leaned forward from his elevated throne at the chamber's apex. His species, the Velarath, had chaired the council for 300 years. They were tall, silver-skinned, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern that saw in spectrums no human eye could detect. Kale Veyron had presided over the admission of 11 species into the galactic community. He had overseen the resolution of 7 interstellar disputes. He had, in his long career, never once considered that a species as young as humanity would be the one to teach him something about dignity. Ambassador Cross, Kale Veyron said, his voice carrying the deep resonance that the translation matrix rendered into precise, unaccented English, the Council has reviewed humanity's request for full membership status, including voting rights, resource-sharing access, and joint defense protocols. After deliberation, the Council's position remains unchanged. Ethan Cross said nothing. He waited. Humanity's civilization, while impressive for its developmental stage, does not yet meet the threshold requirements for full membership. You have existed in space for merely 200 years. The minimum observed period for cultural stability assessment is 500. Furthermore, your species' history of internal conflict, your wars, your environmental negligence, your tendency toward tribalism, raises concerns about your readiness to participate in decisions affecting the broader galactic community. A low hum of agreement moved through the chamber tiers. We offer, as before, observer status. You may attend council sessions. You may petition for trade agreements on a case-by-case basis. You may speak, but not vote. This is a generous accommodation, Ambassador. Many species waited longer. Ethan Cross let the silence sit for a moment. Then he nodded, once, slowly, the way a man nods when he has heard exactly what he expected to hear and has already prepared his response long before the words were spoken. He reached into his jacket and placed a single data chip on the podium surface. It sat there, small and unremarkable. That chip, he said, his voice calm and even, carrying no anger, no pleading, no performance, contains the complete record of humanity's contributions to this council over the past 40 years of our observer status. Medical synthesis research that eliminated the Keth plague on Verena Prime, a plague your own scientists had been studying for 60 years without solution. The gravitational mapping we provided that allowed safe passage through the Cylon corridor, a route that has since reduced interstellar travel time between the core systems and the outer reaches by 30%. The agricultural engineering our teams provided to the Drathian colonies when their food chain collapsed following the Pulse event. 17 incidents. 40 years. All while we held no voting rights. All while we received observer status, the galactic equivalent of being allowed to watch from the doorway. He paused. I want to be clear that I am not listing these things to demand reward. Humans don't require your gratitude. I'm listing them because I want the record to be complete. Kale Veyron's 4 eyes narrowed slightly. Ambassador, the Council acknowledges humanity's contributions. However, past assistance does not. I'm not finished, High Counselor. The chamber went very quiet. Kale Veyron, who had not been interrupted in 40 years of chairmanship, said nothing. The Council has assessed humanity's history of internal conflict as a disqualifying mark, Ethan continued. I find that interesting. Humanity fought wars, yes. We burned our environment and pulled it back from the edge. We divided ourselves along every possible line and then, slowly, found ways to cross those lines. We made catastrophic mistakes and we survived them, not because someone intervened, not because a more advanced civilization offered us guidance, but because we are extraordinarily, sometimes maddeningly, difficult to kill. You call that instability. We call it a learning record. He looked up at the tiers. Not at Kale Veyron specifically. At all of them. None of your member species have faced an extinction-level climate event and reversed it. None of your species have survived 3 separate periods of near-total civilizational collapse and continued building. Your oldest member civilization has never been tested the way humanity has been tested, because your earliest stages of development occurred when this galaxy was quieter. You did not have to become what we became. You simply grew. A Thressi delegate, a species of towering insectoids who rarely spoke in open session, clicked its mandibles and leaned forward. Ethan Cross registered it, but continued. The Council has offered observer status. I am here today to formally decline it. The hum in the chamber changed. It became something sharper. Kale Veyron straightened. Ambassador, I would counsel caution. Declining observer status means? It means we leave, Ethan said simply. It means humanity withdraws from all Council-affiliated agreements, terminates the existing trade framework, recalls our research teams from joint projects, and closes our embassy offices on Vareth Station. It means that when you need us, and you will, High Counselor, because you have been needing us for 40 years without acknowledging it, we will not be at the door you left us standing outside of. We'll be somewhere else entirely. You would isolate yourselves from the galactic community over a matter of status classification? Ethan Cross almost smiled. With respect, High Counselor, no. We would recognize our own worth over a matter of status classification. There is a difference. Humans spent a very long time learning that difference the hard way. We don't forget hard lessons. He picked up the data chip and returned it to his pocket. The record I mentioned, he said, a copy has been transmitted to every observer and member species independently, outside of Council channels. Not as a threat. Simply so that when humanity's absence is noticed, and it will be noticed, everyone will have the context to understand why. He buttoned his jacket. It has been an honor to serve in this chamber. I wish the Council continued success. Ethan Cross turned and walked toward the chamber exit. His footsteps were quiet on the obsidian floor. He did not look back. He was almost at the doors when Kale Veyron spoke again, and something in the High Counselor's voice had shifted, though Kale Veyron himself would not have been able to name exactly when the shift had occurred. Ambassador Cross. Ethan stopped. He turned, unhurried. Kale Veyron descended 2 steps from his elevated throne. It was a gesture no one present could remember him making before. The Council would require time to conduct a supplemental review of humanity's application. Ethan waited. A full review. Of all criteria. Including the weighting assigned to historical conflict data versus demonstrated adaptive resilience. The High Counselor's 4 eyes met the humans' 2. 3 months. Ethan Cross considered this. He considered it in the way humans consider things, visibly, with no attempt to disguise the fact that he was thinking, that there was a real person behind the diplomacy. 6 weeks, he said. Humanity's position is time-sensitive. Kale Veyron was quiet for a long moment. 6 weeks, he agreed. Ethan nodded, that same single nod, the one that meant a decision had already been made, and the world was simply catching up. He left the chamber. Behind him, the 42 species of the Galactic Council sat in unusual silence, and in that silence, several of them arrived, separately, at the same uncomfortable realization. They had been studying humanity for 40 years, assessing whether this young, scarred, stubborn species was ready to join them. No one had stopped to ask whether humanity had been assessing them in return. The data chip had contained the contributions record. It had also, noted the Thressi delegate quietly to its neighbor, contained a complete infrastructure analysis of which Council member species had grown dependent on human research outputs, and exactly how long each of them could sustain current operations without it. Humans, the Thressi delegate reflected, did not threaten. They simply made sure everyone had complete information. There was, the delegate decided, something deeply unsettling about a species that had learned to weaponize transparency. Something unsettling, and something, undeniably, worth understanding. 6 weeks later, humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council, the first species to achieve it in under 300 years of space travel. The vote was not unanimous. It was close to it.